Well, good morning. It's 3:30 in the morning and gonna go meet up with Henderson Equipment to drive 3 hours to look at a John Deere bulldozer. Let's get started. Welcome back to Spank Ranch Garage. We got another turd on our plate. I don't need another project, but I just had to have another project. This is a 1975 John Deere 450B crawler dozer with a 6-way blade, 219 inline 4. It's got the HLR transmission. It's got some pretty nice grousers, decent undercarriage on it, and that's about it. The rest of this thing is whooped. Both steering clutches have problems. The engine runs on 3 cylinders. Blade's a little sloppy. Somebody torched the track bar off of it. Rollover protection is not mounted correctly up here. She's leaking about every fluid known to man, and the loader blade controls are the sloppiest thing I've ever laid these pretty little hands on. Anyway, the price was too good to pass on, so let's get started with fixing this thing up and make a real dozer out of it. This thing's got so many issues, but the way you tackle these projects is not thinking about all the issues. Take them one step at a time and prioritize what is important and what can wait, and where do we need to get for our next step. So my first step, I want to get this engine running on 4 cylinders. I got a pretty active fuel leak under the fuel filter here. Just saw a drip. Need to get that resolved. And then perhaps one of the most scary things about this dozer, and part of the reason I got it for the price I did, is coolant leaking from the block, because there is a freeze crack behind the injection lines right here. So that needs to be repaired as well. Let's get started. First, to determine why it's only running on 3 cylinders, let's determine what cylinder is missing. If I shoot these exhaust runners here, you see 230 degrees on cylinder 4, 246 on cylinder 3, 180 on cylinder 2, and then 100 on cylinder 1. I can hold my hand on this, no problem. That's probably a little hotter than it actually says. Yeah, 175. So I think we have a fuel delivery issue to cylinder number 1, and the reason I say that is because I don't have any white smoke, like unburned fuel, but it is extremely down on power. This thing will only move on flat ground in 4th gear high. It should, it should rip, and it does not. This thing is not making any horsepower. We know cylinder 1 is not firing and not even trying to, and honestly, with the temperature of cylinder 2, you gotta wonder how she's hitting as well. So it could be 3 things, I think. 1, either there's no piston left in the hole, which would be very unfortunate. 2 would be the injector pump is not sending fuel to that nozzle, which is possible. Or 3, and I think the most common or the most likely cause, is that we just don't have a functioning nozzle. I think this nozzle's clogged. All right, first I'm going to crank this with no fuel, with the fuel solenoid turned off, and we're going to listen and see if we hear that gallop indicating a low compression on 1 cylinder. That sounds really, really good. Next, come up here to the valve cover. This is our downdraft tube or blow-by tube. Fish this thing out of here. See what kind of blow-by we're getting. All right, that's really good. No concerning blow-by. I mean, there's a little bit of air, but you know, this thing's a 1975. I expect it to be way worse. So that is really good, and that gives me faith that the engine is in pretty decent shape mechanically. Next step, I'm gonna loosen number 1 injector line while the engine's running. We're gonna check for some fuel coming out. Doesn't necessarily mean we have great pressure, but it'll at least indicate that the pump is sending fuel that way. It's time to investigate this cylinder 1 nozzle. There's a little groove in the side of this. You probably are supposed to have a puller in here. I'll see if I can get lucky on it. Oh my goodness. I might have got lucky there. Or they just don't, or they're not really that tight of a fit, I don't know. Oh, long boy. Wow. Okay, that's a nozzle. All right, just close up the injector. I want to see if I can service it in any way. I have no experience with old ag equipment or John Deere anything. All my diesel experience is common rail and Kubota. And the Kubota nozzles, I'm able to take them apart and pull the spring out, pull the seat out, kind of make things happen. I don't know if this thing's serviceable. I would expect it to be because it's so old. Okay, that's good to see. All right, so that comes off of there. That nut will come down. It's got a seal in it. And we have adjustable parts here and movable parts. And we could loosen this up. I want to do it on camera and count out loud because I know I'm gonna have too many beers and forget what I did here. Using a 10mm wrench to hold the injector body, I'm gonna put this 5/64 Allen in here, kind of as a flag to mark this and see if anything moves. And then I'm gonna break loose this jam nut with a 9/32 wrench. Let's see. Just wanna watch that Allen, because I have a feeling this is a jam nut and that Allen probably has something to do with the pop-off pressure or something else. Okay. That did turn, didn't it? Okay, so now that that's loose, I want to keep this in the same position and back that nut off. 1, 2, 3, 4, 16, 17. Oh, look at that. Okay, that's a lock nut for the main screw. So I would have never got this without loosening this nut. So I'm watching that screw, making sure it's not moving. Interesting. 6.5, 7, she came out. 7. So that's what I wanted to see. Woo! Yep, and there's crap on the tip of it. Okay, good. I think I feel okay about this now. Oh, beautiful, baby. That's what I want to see. Watch this spray pattern. That's where that horsepower comes from. Oh, it's hot out here and there's going to be a lot of those cracking. worked. It runs on all 4 cylinders now. Idle's pretty smooth, sounds good at RPM. She definitely likes to chooch some smoke when you rev it up, but you know, it's an old machine. I noticed temperature gradient wise, I'm not blown away with what cylinder 1's doing. You're looking like, you know, 218, 229, 220, and then cylinder 1's still cooler than the rest, but I had that injector apart and I don't think I did it totally. Now knowing that it at least runs on all 4 cylinders, I want to tackle this cracked engine block. This is probably one of the more intimidating repairs I'm going to have to do, and I just want to get that over with and see if it's going to work before I continue to invest in this. So the injectors are okay for now. We're not done with them. We're going to recircle back to these, but let's get this engine block fixed.
Whoa, what was that?
So here's what we're dealing with here. This is a water jacket that runs below the cylinder head. You look at this wet spot here. This is coolant seeping from the block. Now this really doesn't leak too bad, but it leaks enough to where I got to deal with it. You can't run it this way. Well, you could, but you shouldn't. Anyway, it leaks out of here and then it seeps down the side of the block, drips off the bottom of the engine. And I can visually see what appears to be a crack here, but we got to get this paint off and get a better look at it. Well, that's not typically something you like to see. Somebody's been here before me and already tried to fix this crack with some type of epoxy, it looks like. And that is not cool because I want to weld this and I don't want all that crap in there. You can see that as I dig in, she's starting to sweat some coolant through the epoxy here. I don't know if this is JB Weld or some type of specialty product. Honestly, I mean, it could have been running this way for 10 years. I don't know. So you can't really hate on the repair. I considered it, not knowing that this has already been epoxied once. I considered epoxying it. But I'd like to get this cleaned out as good as possible and then see if we can weld this up. And now it wants to start flowing. So right now I'm draining the engine block to get the water level below the crack in which we'll be working, and then I'll get back to chipping out this epoxy. So I've been chasing and following the crack, and you can see it here, kind of in the bottom of that. It's a pretty small crack, but I've made this huge, and it looks like, oh my God, what are you doing? But my thoughts are, this casting is really thick, and if I was just to weld over this crack, I really wouldn't get much penetration. I wouldn't really trust the repair. So I'm digging out all the epoxy with a cutoff wheel, and now that I'm through that, I'm starting to chamfer and round the edges here. That way I can put a root pass right down the center, and then I can put a nice cap pass over top. For this repair, I'm going to be using the Muggy Weld 77 cast iron electrodes. These are made for a stick welder, but I'm going to take off the flux and run it in a TIG. I've never used these before. I did a lot of research on cast iron repairs before attempting this, and I've been really through the ringer with decision making on how to repair this. I mean, you could go as simple as just epoxy or JB weld. These cooling systems are only 7.5 psi on these old John Deeres. That's like not a lot of pressure to hold back. Honestly, an epoxy repair would probably work for years. The other option is stitching it with steel. So basically drilling holes, tapping bolts, then drilling holes between them and tapping them until you've basically replaced the whole crack with new steel. That's an awesome option. I kind of wanted to do that, though cost-wise, it would be a little more expensive and maybe a little more time-consuming. And then you've got welding, and you know, a lot of guys say run a high nickel rod, some people run a stainless rod. I came across these muggy rods. These are very expensive. This was almost $90 delivered to my door for a half a pound of 3/32 rod. But it seems to be some of the best stuff. Now, I haven't used it, and there aren't a ton of reviews on YouTube about people using it and how it's holding up. So we'll see. I've gotten this thing so cleaned out. You know, I got a lot of time prepping this, wire brushing, grinding, digging. Hopefully it works. Of course, literally as I go to start this, a freaking storm rolls in. You cannot TIG weld with shielding gas in this kind of environment. So now I gotta wait. God damn it! Oh, wow. Man, that one fought me. So I got this pop tester on Amazon, cheap. I'll put a link in the description. It was like 85 bucks or whatever. But the way this works, it's basically just a cheesy bottle jack with a valve and a reservoir. And you will hook up your nozzles from whatever piece of equipment you're working on. Put this on here, and you hook up your nozzle to it. And then as you pump this up, you're going to be able to observe what pressure this injector opens at. You're going to be able to check for leak down. You're going to be able to look at your spray pattern, all that kind of stuff. I don't really know of a way to calibrate or match these injectors without doing something like this. Now the issue, which we kind of expected, or I expected upon purchasing this, is that the Chinese adapters do not fit the John Deere Stanadyne nozzles. So there's a thread mismatch here. This is like an M14 by something, and this is probably 9/16 if I had to guess. So I've got to come up with a solution to get this to here. And you're talking fairly high pressure. These are probably going to pop between like 1,500 and 3,000 PSI. So you can't really half-ass it too much, but I'll see what I can come up with there. I threaded a piece of round stock to 3/8 24, which fits the banjo bolt for the John Deere. So that'll thread in there nicely. And then we'll just clamp the line with 2 washers like you would on the injection pump. And then on the back side of this, I'm going to weld this stupid adapter, one that I would never use, to this. And that way that just threads onto here like they intended. And then you bolt up your John Deere line, you hang your injector off of that. So yeah, it's gonna be a long path, but it's incompressible fluid. It shouldn't matter. It shouldn't change our results. So. All right, I finally got this piece of turd working. So you've got diesel in a bowl back here. You've got a valve that turns your gauge on and off. Hand pump, the line we made, and then you have the actual factory line over to the fuel injector into here. So it all works, right? We come up. All right, we hit about, what, 3,000 pounds, the injector launches off, right? The test fixture works as it should, and that wasn't easy to get there. A lot of things happened off camera. I would not recommend you buy this. I'm still gonna put the link in my description, but you're not gonna buy it and use it. You have to take it apart, clean all the junk out of it. I couldn't believe the amount of shavings that were inside this thing. This will do more harm to your nozzles than just not testing them ever will. I can't believe this piece of crap. But either way, if I get 4 tests out of it and I whip it in the trash, it is what it is at this point. Let's take a look at this here. So we're looking for a nice stream of 4 shots coming out of that nozzle, just like that, right? But not quite. That's actually launching very early, and see how it leaks? See how it's kind of like a dribble, but when I pump it hard, you get that nice atomization. That's what we're supposed to have every time. So this nozzle is fouled up and needs to be taken apart and cleaned. I'll take it up to like 2,500 PSI, and that nozzle is dripping a little bit. So it doesn't actually pass a leak test. Just the fact that you can leak it like that, like real soft, is probably why this thing smokes so much. What you see right there. So pop pressure is very inconsistent on this. Sometimes it pops at 3 grand. Sometimes it's popping at, 2,700 and just dribbling out. Look at that. Very interesting. So according to this website that's selling these same part number injector, they are saying the new pop pressure should be 3,320 PSI, plus or minus 40. And the valve lift is only a half turn, plus or minus an eighth, which seems very small to me. So there you go. There she chatters a little when she's wide open like that and you really slam her. But at least now all 4 nozzles are clean. They all pop at the same pressure and they all have the same valve lift of 1.2 or 1.5 turns. So it may not be perfect, but at least everything's even now, and that's what I'm more concerned about. So the wind has died down a smidge. I'm sure it'll start up again as soon as I get this ready, but we'll see. So I'm starting to stitch along as I go. I've got porosity here, and this one actually has a crack in it. This looks really good. This one looks good. This porous mess. Not sure what happened there, but I'm gonna come back over this again and hit that. I'm gonna let this cool. Yeah, I don't know. This one cracked probably because I got it a little too hot maybe, but this kind of stuff really looks good, especially right here. That's really nice. It is very important to hydrate as this is cooling. You want to keep your head in the right space. You got to stay focused. Finished a few more tacks. See, we're keeping her pretty cool. I mean, it welded it maybe 3 minutes ago. We're already down to like 100 degrees. I may actually want to warm this up a little bit. That seems a little cool to me. Well, there it is. It ain't winning any beauty contests. This stuff really welds well to cast iron. I have no doubt that a good welder could do some nice work with this. I am not one of them. And then we'll pressure test the system, make sure the repair worked. I want to pump this thing up and check for leaks. Wow. Pinhole City, baby. I suck at this. That's crazy. That there's that much porosity. I really can't see it. That's wild. Okay. Well, finally got the pinholes worked out of this stupid weld. This did not go nicely, I'll say. I am confident it's gonna work and remain in service for the life of the Dozer, but damn. I just fought pinholes. I've been out here, I mean, it's getting dark now. I've been out here for probably 4 hours, just pumping up the rad, fighting pinholes, pumping up the rad. Screw that. I probably won't repair it that way next time. I was gonna grind this smooth and paint it, but after what I just went through, no way. We'll hit her with the John Deere yellow, and that looks horrible, but you know what? Look at what we're doing here. Shoo! Boy, is that ugly, but this ain't no cream puff anyway, so you know, sometimes you think something out in your head, and I was like, yeah, I'm just gonna TIG weld that special rod in there, and I'll just grind it smooth, and it'll look like that repair never happened. Nah, that repair definitely happened. It happened. It is better than what I ground out of there. I feel very confident about it, as opposed to the epoxy had me kind of a little uneasy. You know, this weld isn't just gonna blow out someday, or you know, it may crack and seep. But you're talking a seepage. You're not talking like, it's not a day ruiner. You know, you add a little coolant, you move on down the road. Where, you know, with the way they had that crack all cut open nice and thick, and then the epoxy in there, you know, that whole chunk could come out, and that is a little frightening. But anyway, that's like a waste of 4 hours, but we're back in business. Another issue I got to deal with is the throttle is totally seized, and this guy put this custom gas pedal in here, which is kind of cool, but I need this hand throttle to work. I got the engine side of the cable pulled through, but man, they don't make this easy to get out. I got to get way in behind all this crap and disengage this cable. Pulling off the fuel filter is going to get me a little room, and I'm going to be changing this anyway and entirely purging the fuel system all the way from the tank to the injectors, so might as well just get that off now. Not bad. Nobody's probably been in here in a long time. God damn, that's a heavy dashboard, cast iron dashboard. Okay. I would like to save this cable because I don't think they're made anymore, but pull that sleeve off. And then I'm going to put a piece of hose over it like that and clamp it, and then we're going to start soaking this thing with Croil and see if we can get it to come out the other end. And then if we do, we can start working it, put some oil down there. Now I'm just going to clamp this, let it hang up here, let her sit overnight. I'll just come back every now and again and top it off, and hopefully we get some natural wicking action. If not, we're gonna blow it through with air pressure. I'll put a longer hose on here and fill it up and do the putz trick, and we'll see if that does it. Jesus Christ. There's mud on top of the transmission that is, I mean, deep. I'm gonna have to get in here to do service and adjustment anyway, so now's a great time to just pressure wash and blast this whole thing. Ugh, gets disgusting in these things. Wow, look at that. There's a whole transmission under here. You can actually see yellow stuff again. Alright, I am going to send you guys down into this tank, and then you tell me what you see. You can't see in here. I'm going to review the footage and see if I can drop this camera in here. Well, that's freaking sweet. I expected to have to do like serious rust repair in this tank. I think for sure I'd have to take it off and tumble it with some rocks in there and clean it up. It looks really good, so I'm just gonna go ahead and drain this sediment bowl here and see what we get, and then we will replace the fuel line up front, and she's ready. There she goes. Oh yeah. Okay. That'll keep the weeds down. I want to give these nozzles and pump and fresh fuel filter and fresh fuel lines their best shot at, you know, staying clean. So all right, so the last couple of things on the fuel system. If I come through here, this is the return line. It runs behind the engine in really tight quarters over to the injection pump, and then it runs under the floor here back and into the tank. I'm going to replace this for good measure because this is tough to get to in normal circumstances. Let's do it now. Up here we could do better. The fitting in the tank comes out to this 3/8 line, and it's kinked and crappy, and like, come on guys, we got random, you know, clamps holding things together here. It's just not quite my style. Got the new return line in and plumbed. It runs behind the cylinder head, up onto the dash, and then ties back into the hard line down here. This does not seem like the factory fuel line system here. I kind of want to go another turn, but I don't know if I got that, so let's see. That's gotta be tight. That went nice. Wix 33370. You can get these on Rock Auto really cheap. So I'm always ordering from Rock Auto, doing automotive repair, so I just throw these on my order when I, you know, need to make up some shipping or whatever. That's what this was supposed to look like. She's done her job. This fill cap has a Schrader valve in it. It's probably not original. I have a feeling the farmers put this on there. We'll put that to use. Once I fill this up, I'm gonna put a little pressure against this, and we'll use that to bleed the fuel system all the way out to the injection pump. That way, any crap that's left in the lines from all the work we did will all get pushed out at that point. Then we hook it up to the pump, we'll bleed the injectors, and this fuel system should be back to normal state. Oh, there she comes. All right, the fuel filter is full, and now we are coming out over here. And looking pretty clean. So we did shoot out a bunch of the old stuff, and now that is the, I got on-road diesel just because it was quicker to get. Nice, clean and clear. So let's get that hooked up to the pump. Before we wrap up this fuel system job is the inlet screen on the pump. Really shouldn't really ever be anything that gets in here, but anything's possible. I do see some crap, so let's get that blown out. So I'm not really sure what's happening here. I think I have an issue with the cylinder 1 nozzle. Maybe I didn't do a good job of putting that back together or something. The other 3 cylinders seem to run really nice and clean, and cylinder 1 is struggling. So I pulled injector 1, put it in the shop, and it seems to spray fine, pops at the right pressure, everything's good. So I'm gonna swap 1 and 2 and see if this problem follows the injector. If it does, I'm just gonna go and order a brand new one from Standardine. I'm tired of playing around here. But yeah, it's just got inconsistent combustion in this cylinder. Sometimes it hits, sometimes it doesn't. And all right, they're swapped. Let's see what happens. I'm kind of hoping cylinder 2 starts acting up now, just because it's an easy fix if this is the problem. All right, that's exactly what I wanted to see. So cylinder 2 is now the smoky cylinder. Cylinder 1 is still getting rid of all this, you know, all this unburned diesel in here. That cylinder is just soaked. So that'll take a little while to dry out, but cylinder 2 is now producing its own juices, and I'm fine with that. I'll throw a nozzle at it. You know, I was glad I could save any of these, so if I only got to throw 1 at it, no problem. 2 days later, brand new Standardine injector showed up. For fun, I did check the valve lift on this, and this is only a little bit over a half a turn, so I don't know what the real spec is. But anyway, we'll put this in, see if she runs any better. I still get a little smoke out of cylinder 1 and 2, but it seems to be greatly reduced, and it seems like I get equal heat out of them now, at least on the back of my hand. So before we go any further with this, I want to pull the valve cover and check the valves, and while it's at top dead center, we'll check the timing on the injection pump. Looks pretty straightforward. I think getting this to top dead center is going to be the trickiest part. Cylinder 1, top dead center. There it is. All right, that is top dead center on the compression stroke. Cylinder 1, because these are calm. You're lucky if people change the oil, let alone check valves. And back at top dead center, we're going to look under the cover of the trusty crusty Rusa Master injection pump. Oh, look at that. You see those 2 timing marks? They're pretty darn close. I mean, that's very, very close. You could turn the pump, you know, if you're looking at the back end of it, counterclockwise just a smidge to be lined up, but I ain't gonna touch it. That's close enough. All right, guys, that's all she wrote for this episode. Getting the engine running perfectly, or as close to perfect as it is right now, was my goal with this. That way, when I go to look at the rest of this Dozer and it's terrible, I can at least say, you know what, this is a really good running engine though, so this is worth spending all this time on to fix. The weld on the side here, nice and bone dry, no problems with that. I got the engine up to about 160 degrees. I don't know if it's got a thermostat in it because I couldn't get it over 160, but it did build some cooling system pressure. Bone dry, all the fuel lines are dry. She runs good. It did puff a tiny bit of smoke when I started it, but once it's warmed up, crystal clear, no weird smells. Obviously she'll smoke black a little when you juice it, but no problem there. I am waiting in the mail for a throttle cable. I was not able to save that throttle cable. I want to give it an oil change, but I won't bore you with filming that. And I need to tighten up the alternator belt here. You probably heard it on camera, but she's squealing a bit. Alternator's a little loose. But otherwise, this engine, fantastic. Fuel system repaired, pump timing's good, valves look good. Everything really went well. I did make some repairs to the exhaust to cut down on the exhaust leaks. That muffler is pretty rotted out. It's got about 15 different leaks, but it's nice running it with a muffler because it is much quieter. So next episode, we are going to get into clutches, brakes, and steering clutches. Stay tuned for that. That's pretty much the Achilles heel of these John Deere Dozers. And I wanted to make sure I got a solid engine in front of all this before I even start on that. So stay tuned. Let me know what you think about this old girl, and I'll see you next time. Thanks for watching Spank Ranch Garage.